Thanks for checking out our latest episode of the Dissected Series, where today we're going to be taking a look at the new Haro Shift I09. Haro has recently released a new eMTB line, and this is their top of the line offering in their dual suspension e-bike collection, and it retails for $5,999. So the Shift I09 has 160 millimeters of rear wheel travel and comes in a mullet configuration, meaning it's a 27.5-inch rear wheel with a 29-inch front wheel. Suspension spec on this bike comes in a Fox Performance X2 rear shock and a Fox Performance 36 fork up front, and comes with a Grip 2 damper, and the rear shock unfortunately lacks adjustability in the high-speed and low-speed circuits. It was one of the ways that Haro tried to keep the cost down on this bike, and you can only adjust the low-speed circuitry, which is a little bit of a bummer in our book. Overall, Haro put together a really good shock tune with Fox, and beyond wishing we could speed the rebound up a little bit, it really didn't hold us back too much. The bike is built with an aluminum frame and uses a solid, stiff, one-piece rear link and a 4-bar suspension design, which it's one of the most popular suspension designs and can deliver a really effective and cushy, supple and sensitive ride, and Haro definitely nailed it with the tune on this bike. We've got a Shimano Steps E8000 motor, which is delivering 70 Newton meters of torque, and the medium through extra large bikes come with a Darfon 630 watt-hour battery. We're really happy that Haro actually worked with Darfon to get this larger battery in this bike, because one of the biggest downsides of the Shimano systems right now is the smaller battery, when so many of our other Bosch equipped bikes are able to outride those by quite a bit. So we're definitely able to keep up with this Haro a bit longer and get out for that last extra lap or two that many of the Shimano equipped bikes don't offer. Now, spinning that motor is a set of 165 millimeter cranks, which is also a really smart move from Haro. That short crank really kind of lets us know that the folks at Haro know what e-bikers want, that they're aggressive riders and they're riding in terrain that they're able to see why a 165 crank works. And the reason for that is speeds are faster, you're pedaling more, and you want to really just be able to keep pedaling and keep that cadence and power down. So whether you're seated going through technical rock gardens or over, tall roots, or you're coming out of a corner and there's some kind of chunky marbly rocks, you can still get on the pedals with less fear of clipping a crank or pedal. And that's something that is a very real issue, and we've had some pretty close calls on other bikes because of the longer crank arms. So controlling the power delivery on the Steps E8000 system is a Shimano XT Di2 11-speed drivetrain. Both the motor and Di2 can be controlled and modified through the Shimano Power Tube and Shimano apps. You can adjust power modes in Eco through Boost, and you can also change the configuration of the shifter, which is something we suggest you do. Shimano always shifts their Di2 shifters in the exact opposite order of their cable actuated shifters, which makes it really confusing for people who've never ridden Di2. We don't know why Shimano does that, but it's definitely a bad prank and has resulted in some pretty ugly misshifts from people who've never ridden Di2. So, cockpit spec comes in the form of a 35 mil pivot stem and pivot handlebars. Mounted on the bars here is an X-Fusion remote dropper post lever, and leads to a 125 millimeter dropper post, something that we think is a little short for this day and age. A lot of bikes are coming with minimum 150 to 170, so the fact that we've got larges and extra large bikes coming with a 125 dropper is definitely something we think Haro should be looking at addressing in the future. The bike will come with a reach of 475 millimeters. The stack height will be 636 millimeters with a 787 millimeter standover height. The head tube angle is 65 degrees and the seat tube angle sits at 74. The overall wheelbase is 1,259 millimeters, and the bike comes with 450 millimeter chainstays. Again, thanks to that 27.5-inch wheel, the engineers were able to keep that pretty short and snappy for some kind of technical, tight trail slaying. So definitely like that. As we've said before, these Dissected Series videos aren't meant to be our long-term reviews. These are kind of just a detailed first look where we work with the brands to kind of get the details, the information out to you guys as quickly as possible around a bike's launch. To create this video, however, we have spent a pretty solid amount of time riding this bike. That being said, wow, this thing definitely surpassed our expectations, right? I mean, Haro's obviously a legendary name in the bike space. Four-bar linkage design, the frame, just the stance of the bike overall. Almost instantly from our first descent, like this bike was on fire and really impressed our testers. So we've bounced the bike around between a few testers. We've spent some days out in some really steep, chundery, rooty, loamy trails. We've ridden it on kind of longer, flat, pedally days. We've hit some jump trails with it. We've hit some slower, technical, kind of rock garden stuff, and found that the bike has a pretty solid balance all around. Suspension, again, we touched on it a little bit earlier, pretty solid. Like, it really is supple, it's sensitive. We do wish we had a little bit nicer shock out back to kind of control high-speed and low-speed circuits, but the shock really didn't slow us down a ton. Haro did a really good job so far in our testing. We've got no major complaints. We'd love a longer battery range, which is not Haro's fault. That's kind of the Shimano system and them just being a little bit behind. But them going with that Darfon 630 watt-hour battery is definitely an awesome move. That's kind of our initial impression of the bike so far. We're stoked. We're gonna keep riding it. Give us another couple months to really test the longevity, the durability and the strength of the components and the spec, and we'll be reporting back to you guys with a detailed review in the future, so stay tuned for that. Thanks again to Haro and everybody for helping make this video possible, and we hope you guys got some good information. Feel free to ask any questions down below. We'll do our best to reply, or get in touch with Haro if we can't answer your questions. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We hope to see you out on the trails.